Chag Sameach. The author of Ecclesiastes is not someone you would want to sit next to at a dinner party. He is a talented poet, a brilliant philosopher, and a grumpy pessimist who very convincingly argues that everything is futile. Life has no purpose. He says, "Let me tell you, I am rich, I have status and power, I have intelligence and knowledge, and yeah, maybe that all makes life easier, more pleasurable, but not more meaningful. So if you're striving for those things in the hope they will give you meaning, save yourself the time and effort." Ecclesiastes claims nothing is new under the sun. At core, everything is repetitive. None of us are original. Nothing will last, including and most significantly, us. Poets and writers and thinkers of all backgrounds, spanning generations, have directly and indirectly been responding to Ecclesiastes in their work, and I'm sure will continue to. Today, we will look at one example from Israeli poet Yehuda Amichai. Amichai takes on Ecclesiastes in several poems and does so with the highest respect. Amichai has described Ecclesiastes as the great, great poem of human despair. You should have received a copy of Amichai's poem when you came in. Feel free to pull it out and look at it as I read it out loud. A Man in His Life by Yehuda Amichai. A man in his life has no time to have time for everything. He has no room to have room for every desire. Ecclesiastes was wrong to claim that. A man has to hate and love all at once, with the same eyes to cry and to laugh, with the same hands to throw stones and to gather them, make love in war and war in love, and hate and forgive and remember and forget and order and confuse and eat and digest what long history does in so many years. A man in his life has no time. When he loses, he seeks. When he finds, he forgets. When he forgets, he loves. When he loves, he begins forgetting. And his soul is knowing and very professional, only his body remains an amateur always. It tries and fumbles. He doesn't learn and gets confused, drunk and blind in his pleasures and pains. In autumn, he will die like a fig, shriveled, sweet, full of himself. The leaves dry out on the ground, and the naked branches point to the place where there is time for everything. Amichai puts forth an argument that might seem even more depressing. Ecclesiastes says our time on earth is wasted. Amichai says we don't have any time. But he uses that to then express life's richness. Amichai starts at a place of agreement. Yes, everything is fleeting. And yes, our mortality is a defining characteristic of our humanity. But Amichai's conclusion is that at every single moment, whether we try to control it or not, we are feasting on life and digesting life. And yes, sometimes that will make us sick. It doesn't always feel good. But that is our drive, and that is what nourishes us, experiencing every moment of every day with the entirety of ourselves, with the entirety of our experiences. He really makes clear the Talmudic dictum that every person is an entire universe. Ecclesiastes argues that even pleasure is meaningless. Amichai says the opposite. Everything is meaningful, emphasis on full. It's impossible to separate the pleasures from the challenges. It's all happening within us, all at the same time. Amichai then goes right for the kicker in the last verse by directly taking on death. Again, for Ecclesiastes, the passage of time dismisses any value that humanity has, rendering us as nothing, as vanity. For Amichai, time isn't a powerful current that carries us along powerless. Time is something we carry. It accumulates within us. We literally embody the entirety of our lives, and we ripen like fruit that ages and sweetens. And when Ecclesiastes would suggest we are at our most meaningless, Amichai says no. That is when we are at our fullest. He writes, "In autumn, he," meaning man, "will die like a fig, shriveled, sweet, full of himself. The leaves dry out on the ground, and the naked branches point to the place where there is time for everything." So here's the final takeaway. Perhaps Ecclesiastes was even more brilliant and more clever than he tells us he is. Perhaps the author of this book wasn't the grumpy cynic he portrays himself to be. Perhaps he lays out this challenge with intention, instigating so many generations after him to articulate life's meaning and purpose for ourselves and others. When we search for it ourselves, that is proof that it exists. And Amichai does that so beautifully, and also helps us to understand why we read this book of Ecclesiastes on Sukkot. This holiday we call Zman Simchotenu, the time of rejoicing, comes just as we are on the precipice of winter. We see mortality, temporality all around us. Like looking into a mirror, we see the leaves dying, falling to the earth, branches becoming bare. And at the very same time, we rejoice in the fruit that falls from those trees and those vines. We feast on them. We are them. We celebrate and we savor and we express gratitude for the bounty of what temporality brings, for what we are, for our own existence. And with that, we find joy, even as we also brush up against despair. Amen.